Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we are going to be working inside of HemoVision software. And HemoVision is from a company called Forentrics, and this is for bloodstain pattern analysis. So I'm going to walk through a tutorial today and kind of get you what you can see on my screen here. This is an augmented reality image with the results of the analysis. I can also go into 3D here, and you can see the bloodstain trajectories and a number of different surfaces that have been reconstructed. So that's what we're going to be working on today. Now, a couple of things I should say, and that is that working in the software is sort of the second part. The first part is actually the documentation part and the part that you do in the field or at a crime scene or something like that. So there are targets and there are things like that that you have to place on a wall. And so I'll only talk briefly about that, but let me grab my target set actually, and I'll show you what we do when we first set this up. Okay, here they are right here. So what I'm holding up at the screen is a target set. I realize it's a little small, but this is the overview marker. Okay, so an overview marker is a larger marker, and it has a very small little plus sign here to the left of this inner corner, and that's about 4 centimeters over. But this overview marker is what you place, for example, on your main wall, and then you also have a number of detail markers. So these little smaller markers are ones that you place around the bloodstain patterns or smaller patterns where you want to get in closer and get the details of the individual bloodstains. Now let me bring up an image just to kind of show you how you would start, okay, or kind of what a typical layout would be. So here is the pattern that we're going to be working on today, and you see that there's an overview marker here, okay, and there's a number of detail markers around different areas of the bloodstain pattern. And the first thing that you need to do is take a number of images of the overall pattern with the overview marker and the detail marker. So if I just cycle through some of these images, you can see that they're taken from different angles. And usually a very quick rule of thumb is if you take about 5 from an upper position, 5 from a middle position, and then 5 from a lower position from wide angles, then you get enough coverage. You'll get all these detail markers and overview markers from different angles, and it will be able to reconstruct these targets automatically in the software. And that's the sort of the magic behind HemoVision, is the documentation time is very, very quick because it does most of this automatically. So you're going to want to take a measurement to the overall reference marker. And like I said, I won't get into too much details here. I really want to focus on the software, but maybe another day I'll work on just, documenting a pattern, with the markers and how you would position everything. But the first one is, placing these markers and the overview marker, the detail markers, taking the photographs. Okay, now the photographs, these are the overviews. We also want to take close-ups of the individual detail markers, and those will look something like this. Okay, so here's a subset. You can see that we're relatively close. We've got a lot of bloodstains here that we can work with. And what you're going to want to do is try to put the detail marker in a convenient place. Okay, so if the closer to the center of the bloodstains, the better. Now here you can see I can't put it here because it'll cover all the bloodstains. So I just put it off in this area where it wasn't getting in on or interfering with all these other bloodstain patterns. But what you wouldn't want to do is you wouldn't want to put the target all the way in the corner here, and then in the opposite corner down here have the bloodstains. Okay, so you want to try and keep the detail marker relatively close to the stains that you're going to be using. And let me just show you a couple of photos. I'll just cycle through a few here. Here's another one. Okay, this is on a slanted panel. Here's another one. Okay, again, it's on a very difficult angle. And notice that the camera is not always at 90 degrees. And that's one of the benefits of using HemoVision, is that these detail markers, they will correct the perspective distortion for you. Okay, so let's go to another one. Here's another image. Okay, this one, not too bad. Probably would have been better to get somewhere in the middle. Obviously it's a little difficult to do here, but that's okay. Maybe, we could reframe this just up here. Cause if there's any perspective distortion, the part that's farthest away is going to get sort of thrown out. It's going to be corrected heavily. So we want to stick with the areas that don't get corrected as much. Okay. Another photo, and then, another image here. So, let's leave it at that. Okay. There's this whole procedure of it, when you have a bloodstain pattern, you inspect the stain, you place your markers, you take your overview images. You have to make sure that you take a measurement to your overview marker and then take the detail photos with the detail markers as well. Once you got all that, you've basically done everything. And really something like that can take you about 15 minutes, maybe not even that, depending on the pattern and the scale of the project. After you have all that data, now it's time to go back to the office and start working with HemoVision. So that's where I want to get to. And we're going to work on this particular project, and we're going to get to a point where we get something like this, where we calculate the area of origin. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start a brand new project here. Let's start a new project. So when you begin a new project, you got to give it a name. So I'll just call this demonstration for the YouTube tutorial. It gives me the date. It gives me the project units. So I'm going to go to millimeters actually on this one. And then it says the coordinate system. Now there are different coordinate systems you can use, or that if you're comfortable with a Z up, where X and Y are the horizontal axes, you can do that, or you can flip these around. So it gives you a number of options. I'm going to use the Z up right-handed. It's just the one that I'm most used to. And then I will click OK. All right. So once I'm here, I basically have this 3D view here, and there's some buttons up here for navigation that I'll go through. But in the 3D view, this is shown by default. I'm using the right mouse button to move around. So just pan around left and right. I use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And then I use the left mouse button to rotate around the object, whatever that might be. Okay. So those three buttons: right mouse button for panning, scroll wheel for zooming in and out, and then left mouse button for rotating around the 3D view. Now you can see that on the left, I've got this hierarchy. Okay, so this tells me all the different objects, whether they're photos or whatever it is that I reconstruct, will be in this window. And then on the right, I have this property inspector. Now I'm going to make a change here, because when you have the property inspector and the project browser on opposite sides, it takes up quite a bit of space. So I want to get it or maximize the 3D and the 2D views that pop up here. So I'm actually going to grab this from up here, and I'm going to drag down here. So when you see there's a little highlighted box at the bottom here, I'm going to let it go. And then I'm just going to expand this just by dragging it up a bit. So something like that. Okay. And this will just keep everything on the left side. And then this way you can see I've got a lot more real estate to work with on this particular side. Now, there's some different views up here that we need to get to, 2D, 3D. I'll go through those in a bit. There's also some other options here where you have, for example, you can turn the grid off and on. There's like perspective and orthographic view. There's also the focal point. You can toggle to a specific focal point. And here you got to take a screenshot. So there's some different things here. Here, this is not activated just yet, but you can use different reference systems up over here. Okay, so we're in here. We've created a project. What we need to do right now is we need to create a reconstruction. Okay, so we want to, obviously analyze a pattern or whatever. So I'm going to create this reconstruction here. And over here, it says add to this scene. So I had used the default scene 1. So I make sure that's selected. And then I've got this zone 1. Now this zone 1 could be a bedroom, a corner of a room, or something like that. Okay. Whatever it might be. So let's say just for example, it's going to be the bedroom. All right. And then what I need to do is I need to import my overview images. So the ones we took of the overall. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go in the overview, and normally I would have more photos, but you can work with less. Okay. And also if you're using a single wall, you can work with just one photo square on. That will work too, because you'll have the overview marker and the detail markers, but we're going next level here, which is, full 3D and a lot of, slanted panels and different surfaces. So let's go ahead and click on open. I've selected them all. Here they are here. And all I need to do now is just go start reconstruction. So it's going to go through these images. It's going to detect the detail markers and a number of features. And then in the top right here, you'll see that I've got this little spinning wheel here. So it's actually trying to piece together all of these photos by looking at where the cameras are. Okay, so it's going to reconstruct the camera positions. All right. So that just finished there, and you can see that I've got the overview marker here. I can zoom in on this little preview screen. I've got some detail markers here, which is great. And it's also giving me some points. So these points are feature matches from a structure from motion algorithm. And so it does both feature matches and it also does the detail markers. Now, there's not a lot of feature matches because these are white, or these surfaces are covered with white paper, so there's not a lot of features to detect. But if this was a dirty wall or something that had a lot of features or textures, then you would definitely pick up more of these points, okay? But it looks like that everything is working. Now, this point in the top left of the marker, and let me just bring it back up here. So normally this little plus sign here that's on the overview marker, that is going to be your 000 unless you offset it from something. So we always have to measure it from a reference point in the room. So it could be the corner of the room, it could be an outlet, it could be whatever it is that is convenient for you. So in this case, this particular marker was above the ground. So I measured from the floor up high, okay? So up to the top of where that marker is. And I've got some measurements here. And it looks like it's 1,110 millimeters up. Okay, so my X and my Y can be at 0, but I'm going to take the Z value here and I'm going to go 1110. And I don't know if you saw, but there was a little jump here. Okay, so it actually adjusted this. Let me see if it's going to take this. All right. And there's no rotations or anything else that I'm going to place in here. I'm just going to leave it right here. Once I've got my translations in there with respect to my reference point, I'm just going to go ahead and go add reconstruction. Okay. So if I look at this, great. I can see that I've got what I need. I've got the camera, the overview positions and such. So it looks a little busy, but no big deal. Okay. I'm going to click on these overview, these little pyramids here are the camera positions. So you see when I click on them, it selects the actual photo that is inside of this hierarchy here. But I'm going to hide these for now just because they're getting in the way. So if you right click on one and go hide the overview images, then you'll see that we've got this arrangement right here. Okay, that's good. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add the detail images because we want to start marking some bloodstains. So to do that, there's this little camera icon that's up here. I'm going to click on that and it says, hey, select a room. Well, we had scene 1 and the zone was the bedroom or north wall of the bedroom, whatever it might be. Let's import our images. I'm going to go back to my detail markers and I usually split them up in folders just to keep it convenient. Okay, so once I've got these all loaded, what I need to do is analyze the images. So that's going to look for the detail marker. It's going to correct the perspective and all that. And you can see here it has marker detection, perspective correction, and then creating the detail image. So let me go ahead and analyze the images. And you can see this is really quick. For 7, it just took seconds here, and I'm going to add this to the zone. Okay. So now you can see where you get these sort of trapezoidal shapes. This is where you get the image correction or the perspective correction. You can see on that slanted plane, I've got this slanted surface. Okay. You can see I got one here. I got one here, and I didn't do all the detail markers. There were some additional ones. I'm just going to focus on a few here. So we are now ready to mark some bloodstains, and I'm not going to do all the images. I think I'll focus on probably maybe these 4 that are at the bottom here, maybe this one here. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll just try these ones here and see where we get to. Now, there's some different modes here that you can work in, and there's a 2D mode. So when I click on 2D, I go to an image. Okay, so if I click on these different photographs and stuff now, you see that I've got these detail images that I can go to. I also have a 3D view, so I can switch back to the 3D reconstruction here in the window, but I also have a 2D and 3D view. So I like this split view here because you can very easily click on something in the 3D view and it pops up here in the 2D view, which is great. It's just a really, really convenient way to say, hey, where am I? Sometimes when you're flipping through the images themselves, you don't know where they are in 3D, but here you get a very, very good idea of what you're working with. So we need to start marking bloodstains, and I'm going to pick this first image here. You see that in the 2D window, I've got sort of this reference here. It's got a camera and it shows me the angle. So it says, hey, you know what? This is a perpendicular surface. It's a vertical surface and there's no angle. But if I take this other panel that's on the side here, you'll see that it shows that there is an angle here. This is slightly tilted, this surface. So even though I'm looking at it flat on in the 2D view, this little compass thing here shows me that, hey, I'm looking at this at a slight inclination, let's say, or at least the surface is at an angle. Now, to just to get more real estate here, I'm going to shut this little compass thing off. And if you go up here up top, you'll see that I can turn that off and on, no problem. There's also options to hide the little control things here, these little windows, that tooltips and things like that, or the camera information. But I think I can work with this just as is. So when it comes to navigation in the 2D view, you have to hold down the control key and then use the mouse wheel to scroll in and out. Okay. And then you can use the control key again and just left mouse button to drag. So you always need the control key down. So control key for scrolling, and then control key for left mouse button, and you can drag this around. Okay. No problem. So with those controls out of the way, we have to get to the ellipse marking, and there's some controls up here. So there's these two little ellipses. So when I go to the drop down, there is point stains, line stains, and ellipse stains. Okay. So point stains and line stains are mostly automatic. Okay. These are going to happen automatically. Point stains is fully automatic. Line stains is semi-automatic. And then an ellipse is 100% manual. So I'll just do a quick demonstration of these. And when you mark an ellipse stain, okay, manually, when you click on the next button that's over here, this will allow you to edit that particular stain. Okay, so let's go through and go through these one by one. Let me find a good example. So I've got this stain over here. And if I go to point stains, I'm going to click somewhere down at the leading edge here of the stain. So I know that these are traveling up. So I'm going to click down here, and you'll see that it tried to create a stain here. Now, I'm not all that happy because it kind of missed some of this area. So if I want to try this again, I can just right click over the stain and it resets it. Okay, let me click over here more in the middle of the stain. Okay, and you see it kind of did a little bit of a difference thing. Now, the thing is with this, this particular function here, it really only works well when you have a very, very high resolution stain and it's very well defined. If there's any sort of discoloration or whatever, you run into a little bit of problem. Okay. So, but that's the automatic one. Then there's these line stains. So this is semi-automatic. So if I get in closer, if I take a line from the leading edge to the trailing edge here like that, okay, you'll see that it does a better job of marking the stain. Okay, and you can kind of choose where you want to start or finish. Okay, and I'm right clicking each time just to kind of get rid of it. If I make a shorter one, you see that it tries to detect the stain as best as possible, and it also shows you the direction from which it's coming from. Now the last one here is going to be the ellipse stains. Now the ellipse stains means that you are going to mark this 100% manually. So what you need to do is you need to start at the leading edge or the tip of the stain. Then you drag back to the back end of the stain somewhere. So let's say somewhere around here. Then you drag to get the width of the stain. So I'm just going to kind of fit this as best as I can, something like this. Then you click again, and you'll see that it created the stain. Now, this little line that's coming out of the stain, that is telling you where it came from. So it's, if you see in the 3D view here, it's the linear trajectory where that particular stain came from. So I already have one of them that's up on this image. I'm just going to mark like 3 or 4. And I realize this is going to be a little bit boring to watch me do this, but it's just click, click, set the width. Okay, not too happy with that one. Let me try it again. Click, click, set the width. Okay, that's a little bit better. I'm not going to be too picky about these ones simply because of the time. So I'm just going to mark some of the stains here. Now you'll see when I zoom in, this image could have been a bit better. It's not all that crisp or all that clear. So I'm just going to, mark some of these. And again, you can criticize me on my bloodstain marking skills here. I get it. But like I said, I'm just going to do this kind of quickly, and I'm just going to pick a few random stains. Normally, stain selection is really important, and often the longer and more elliptical stains are going to be really, really helpful. So those are the ones that you're going to want to go for first. The circular stains are much more problematic. They're just a lot more sensitive to air, and they cause a little bit of grief, cause a little bit of problem. So let me try one more here, and then we're going to switch to a new image here. So let me go like that. And then, okay, that's good enough. Now you'll see all these trajectories. Let me just switch back to the 3D view. You'll see all these trajectories are showing up here inside of the 3D view. So I've got them all down here. And of course, if you mark something really bad or it's really off or something like that, you can always, select it from here, and it will show up and it gives you some information about that particular stain or whatever. So I'm going to continue on here. I'm going to go back to 2D, 3D, and I'm going to click on a new image. I'm going to shut this little compass off again. and click it. There we go. And now I've got some pretty good stains here. I got some very, very elliptical stains. Also, when you're selecting stains on the image, it's always good to do them from a wide angle. Okay. So maybe one at the bottom, one at the middle, and then one further out. And you mark as many stains as you think you need. Here, I think I'm just going to do something like this. Okay. And I've got that stain there. Now, again, if you wanted to edit this, you click on this, this little icon here, and you'll see that now I've got some controllers for this particular stain. So I can move this around, I can adjust the width, okay, and I can do some different things, change some things here, and even rotate it around, okay? So you have the ability to make changes and that sort of thing. So, but I'm going to go back to the ellipse marking mode. Let me mark this guy like that. Again, I should have probably tweaked that a little bit, but let me mark a couple more here. See, these ones are kind of overlapping a little bit, but that's okay. I got most of this one. Looks great. Let me do a couple more up here, and then I think we'll call it a day. So maybe something like this. Okay. And okay, I'll do one back here. I think this guy should be okay. All right. Great. Okay, so we've got those stains. You can see that now they're starting to converge. I've got these from different surfaces. If I look at this from a top down, you see they start triangulating in on an area. And this area is the area of origin. This is what we're going to be looking to calculate. Now, I can actually calculate it right now and then just keep adding stains, and that area of origin will update. But maybe what I'll do is I'll show that after. Let me start on a different image here. Okay, so I've got a lot here as well. And let me click on that. All right, so let me just start marking some stains. Maybe this guy. And like I said, I'm only going to do like 5 or 6. I don't want to be here all day. And you're going to lose some patience here. Now, I could probably just fast forward on the video, but hey, let's do this in one take and keep it simple for me in terms of all the editing and everything else. So let me go down here. All right, this is looking pretty good. Like that. I could have marked that a little bit better, but that's okay. I'm trying to do this quickly to keep the time. You see here. So you see this one's a little bit oddball, right? So we just want to match. Normally what you're going to do is you want to try and match this front end. Let me try that again. So I'm going to click on this, kind of click on the back here, and you want to mark till about here. I don't think that's long enough. I'm going to try that again. I think it needs to be a little bit longer here. Let me try that. So I think that's a little bit better because the widest part of the ellipse is somewhere around here. I could tweak this a little bit more, but I think that's a better stain that I've marked there, a better ellipse. Okay. And okay, I think that's probably enough on that one. Let's do this last one. Okay. Plenty to work with here as well. And I just use the same process. Click on the tip, go to the back, adjust the width, click. Perfect. And let me do a couple here. This one looks pretty good. Click here, click to the back. There, click, looks good. And maybe I'll do a couple more down here. Like that, like that, like that. And maybe this guy back here. And I think you're getting the idea here, just marking. And, sometimes you don't have this many stains to work with. Sometimes you might only have 5 or 6. And so you got to do the best you can with what you have. But, the fact that you can mark stains and experiment, trial different things, is kind of useful. So I don't like that one. I got to try that again. Something like that, maybe a little bit better. Okay, how many do I got here? Maybe try 1 or 2 up here, and then we'll get into the area of origin. So let me go back here. Let me mark this guy. You can see it could be a little bit crisper on the image. Okay, but there you go. You can see that I'm marking these, and they're starting to converge down at the bottom. So let me go to 3D. There we go. All right, let's stick with what we've got here. I think I've marked enough stains, and what I'm going to do now is calculate the area of origin. So the area of origin is this guy right here. It says add AOO, that's area of origin. You just click on that, and it says, okay, we're in scene 1, and I've got this group A. Now, it's possible to make different groups. You can separate the stains into different groups. And so group A might be an impact, group B might be a cast off pattern or something like that. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to use the group A, and I'll go click OK. All right. And then what it did here was it created an area of origin. Now we can interpret this down here. Let me click on this and let me go down like that and bring this up here, because this is now what we need to focus on. So when I have this selected, you'll see that it's got the ellipsoid sigma and then ellipsoid center. So the ellipsoid center is pretty intuitive. It's just the center of this particular egg looking thing. Okay, this ovoid. And the ellipsoid here, sigma, it's telling you what the errors are in the X, Y, and Z axis. Okay. In this case, the X and Y are the horizontal axes, and the Z is going to be the up and down axis in this case here. Now, so if I look at this from the top down, you'll see that it looks more or less circular. And if I look at the X and I look at the Y, they're actually equal. Okay. I've got 25.95 and 25.95. So that's basically 2.6 centimeters. That's about an inch. Okay. So that's the error as with one standard deviation. And the little ellipsoid here is showing 3 standard deviations. So it shows you the more conservative result. Okay. So just understand that this is larger than what is being reported here where it says the ellipsoid sigma. And on the height, we've got, 33.49. That's 3.35, let's say, centimeters. And so 3 times that, so 3.3, would be close to about 10 centimeters for the vertical. And so this is why it looks larger in the vertical area. Now, there's other things you can do inside of HemoVision, but this is the basic workflow. This is the basic process. There are things you can do where you can augment this, and maybe I'll show you that one. I think that's a pretty cool feature. But if you have other photos of the scene that you took before, like let's say, for example, one of the crime scene investigators shows up, they take some overall photos of where there was a bloodstain or a pattern or something like that, and then later on the analysis was done, you can bring in one of the original images that doesn't have those detail markers. Now, I don't have it in particular on this one, so I'm kind of doing this by the seat of my pants. But what I'm going to do here is, let me go back down, put this down at the bottom. And I'm going to take one of the overview images, and I'm going to create that as an augmented reality image. Okay. So what I need to do is go to Edit. I'm going to go to Add Augmented Reality Image, and this is for Scene 1, and I need to select one of the overviews, not the details. So I'm going to go to the overview. Let's see which one. This one here, I think, gives me the widest field of view. So I'm going to double click on that. And then I'm going to go augment the image. So it's going to go in, it's going to figure out where all the features are and see if those features match with the existing 3D and other images. And I'm just going to go ahead and add. Okay, so you see I've got this new camera position here. So it's kind of an estimate of where the camera was when it took the photo. But I'm going to go to the 2D. And now what you'll see is I've got my 2-dimensional image. I've got the markers. Now this one had markers already, but you see that it's overlaying the results of my analysis here. Now, if I had gone a little bit further back, I would have gotten more of this back here at the bottom where we have our area of origin. It's getting cut off a bit, but I think you get the idea. This is a real photo and you get the overlay. So if this was a crime scene photo, you could overlay the results of the analysis there. Okay, let's go to the 2D, 3D view. And let's also, I guess one more thing that might be important here is to look at the report. So if I go to File and I want to export a PDF, okay, it says the document, it gives me some options and things like that. I'm just going to include everything and I'll leave it in this here. I'm going to call this the AOO report. Okay, and let that go ahead and write, and let's see what happens when it's done collecting everything. It says okay, it's done. Let me close that here, and I have it open on, or it's on another window here. Let me open it up and see if I can get it onto my main screen here. There we go. All right, so now we have the bloodstain area of origin report, and you can see that it gives me my results down here, which is great. Okay, and then it's got the position, the sigma, it's got all the stains, it's listing different angles and things like that. And so basically it's a very, very thorough report that you can use. You can print out, you can add this in, and you see that I've got this augmented image as well that's over here. And this will tell you, hey, this was a crime scene photo and this is the results of my analysis. It just gives you a nice perspective on how that works with the area of origin relative to an image that you took. So I think I'm going to leave it there. This is already kind of a long video, but it gives you kind of a summary of what HemoVision can do. There are other things it can do. It can do cast-off patterns. You can import point clouds and, start creating like 3D reconstructions in the context of the scans and the crime scenes and things like that. So pretty cool program. I like what they're doing. And if you ever give it a shot, you can always reach out to them at Forentrics and give it a go yourself. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.